I did not argue or explain. I simply texted back one word: understood, because I realized the barbecue they banned me from was happening at the very house I pay for every single month. What they do not know is that tomorrow morning, they will walk into my office and see my name on a glass door like a verdict. My name is Lucy Fox. I am 34 years old, and until tonight, I was the invisible bank account of the Harper family. I stood alone on the 34th floor of the Vantacor Biomotion building. The city of Austin sprawled out beneath me, a grid of amber and white lights blurred by the relentless sheets of rain hammering against the floor-to-ceiling glass. It was nearly 9 o'clock at night on a Friday. Most reasonable people were at bars, or at home with their spouses, or putting children to bed. I was here, in a temperature-controlled environment that smelled faintly of ozone and expensive cleaning agents, staring at a contract that represented the culmination of 3 years of my life. The document on my desk was a partnership agreement with a Swiss pharmaceutical giant. It was not just paper, it was the future of our new prosthetic interface technology. The deal was worth $250 million over 5 years. My team had engineered the neural bridge. I had engineered the alliance. The legal team had vetted every clause, every comma, and every indemnity provision. All it needed was my signature on the line above my printed title: Executive Director. Systems Integrity. I uncapped my pen. It was a heavy black lacquer fountain pen I had bought for myself when I received my first major promotion. The one my mother had called a lucky break. The ink was wet and dark. I was ready to sign. I was ready to close the loop. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a sharp, aggressive vibration against the mahogany surface of the conference table. In the silence of the empty office, it sounded like an insect trapping itself against a window. I ignored it for a moment. My focus was absolute. In my line of work, a fraction of a percentage point in error tolerance could mean the difference between a working limb and a lawsuit. I did not like distractions, but it buzzed again and again. A rapid-fire sequence that meant only one thing: the family group chat. I capped the pen. The mood was broken. I picked up the device, the screen brightness stinging my eyes in the dim room. The notification banner was full. The group was titled Harper Family Fun, a name my mother had chosen 5 years ago, unaware of the irony. The latest message was from Evan, my younger brother, the golden boy who had never finished a semester of college without a crisis, yet somehow always ended up being the protagonist of our family narrative. "Don't come to the weekend BBQ," Evan had written. I stared at the words. They were simple, direct. There was no preamble, no softening of the blow, just a command. He followed it up immediately with a second text. "Seriously, Sloan says you bring the mood down. You know how you get. Just stay at your lab and count your atoms or whatever." I felt a physical sensation in my chest, a cold tightening, like a valve closing shut. It was not surprise. I was not surprised that Evan would say this. I was not surprised that Sloan, his wife of 11 months, found my presence intolerable. Sloan was a woman who needed to be the brightest object in the room, and my silence, my lack of applause for her performative stories, made her nervous. She called me intense. She called me robotic. What hit me was not the insult. It was the reaction that followed. Below Evan's message, a small icon appeared, a heart. It was from my mother, Marianne. She had hearted the message telling her daughter not to come to a family gathering. She had looked at her son excluding her daughter, insulting her daughter, and she had tapped the screen to validate it. Then came a reaction from my father. Glenn, a laughing emoji, the one with tears streaming down its face. To him, this was banter. This was just Evan being Evan. This was funny. Then came the chorus. A cousin from my father's side sent a haha. Someone else sent a gif of a door slamming. I stood there, 34 floors above the ground, holding a device that cost $1,000, reading a conversation that made me feel like I was 7 years old again, sitting at the children's table while the adults laughed at a joke I did not understand. They were all there, united in their digital laughter, united in their consensus that Lucy Fox was a necessary utility when bills needed paying, but a social liability when the beers were opened. I typed. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could have reminded them that I had bought the premium Wagyu beef they were planning to grill. I could have reminded Evan that the truck he would drive to pick up the ice was insured on my policy. I could have asked my mother why she thought it was lovely to exclude her firstborn. I deleted the letters. I did not argue. Arguments imply that the other side has a point worth refuting. Arguments imply that I care about their opinion. I typed one word, understood. I hit send. Then I placed the phone face down on the table. I did not slam it. I placed it gently, deliberately, as if it were a petri dish containing a biohazard that I no longer wished to handle. I turned back to the window. The rain was intensifying, blurring the city lights into long, weeping streaks of color. I took a deep breath. Inhaling the conditioned air, I checked my internal calendar, not the emotional one, but the logistical one. My brain has always worked that way. I categorize, I sort, I analyze data points. Why this weekend? Why was the barbecue date triggering a secondary flag in my mind? I unlocked my phone one last time, ignoring the group chat, and opened my personal finance app. I navigated to the real estate management folder. I had set up automated reminders for all the properties I managed. There it was, a notification for tomorrow, Saturday, property tax. Installment due, insurance premium auto draft. I tapped on the details. The address stared back at me. 420 Oak Creek Drive, the location of the barbecue. A dry, mirthless laugh escaped my throat. It was a sound that barely disturbed the silence of the room. Evan loved to tell people about his house. He loved to post photos of the backyard. The spacious deck, the new pergola he claimed to have built. Though he had actually hired a contractor I had recommended, he told his friends he had closed the deal right before the market spiked. He told Sloane's parents that he was building equity. The reality was a spreadsheet stored on my secure server. 3 years ago, Evan had been facing eviction. Again, my parents had called me, hysterical. They could not have their son on the street. They did not have the credit score to co-sign a mortgage. They looked at me, the daughter who had left town, the daughter who made money in the city, the daughter who had no children and therefore, in their minds, no real expenses. I had solved the problem. That is what I did. I solved problems. I created an LLC, a limited liability company with a nondescript name, Blue Heron Holdings. I purchased the house at 420 Oak Creek Drive. I put down the 20% down payment. I secured the mortgage with my credit history, which was impeccable. I drafted a lease agreement for Evan. The rent was set at a number that barely covered the interest. He was supposed to pay it monthly. He had paid 3 times in 36 months. I covered the rest. I paid the property taxes. I paid the homeowner insurance. I paid for the roof repair when the storm hit last spring. I paid for the plumbing overhaul when Evan flushed things that should not be flushed. I let them play house. I let my parents pretend their son was a homeowner. I let Evan pretend he was a man of substance. I did it because it was easier than fighting. I did it because I thought that if I provided the stage, they might eventually invite me to be part of the play, but tonight, they had banned the producer from the theater. Don't come to the weekend BBQ. They were firing up the grill on a patio I had paid for. They were drinking beer in a kitchen where I owned the refrigerator. They were laughing at me under a roof that existed solely because I signed a check every month. I looked at the address again, 420 Oak Creek Drive, and then I looked at my work calendar for Monday morning. Wait, no, not Monday. I swiped to the weekend view. I had a meeting tomorrow morning, Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a special consultation, a favor for a friend in private equity who needed a high-level assessment of a potential investment, a lifestyle brand venture that was looking for bridge capital. My friend had asked me to take the meeting because the founders were difficult, and he needed someone who could cut through the noise and evaluate the actual solvency of the business model. I had not looked at the names of the founders until now. My assistant had just put it in the calendar as lifestyle pitch, urgent. I tapped the attachment. The pitch deck opened. The cover slide was glossy, filled with buzzwords: authentic, grounded, legacy, and there, listed as the founders, were two names: Evan Harper, Sloan Mercer. I stared at the screen. The world seemed to tilt slightly on its axis. Of course, Evan had mentioned he was working on something big. He had been vague, hinting at investors and capital. He had told Mom he was going to be a CEO. They were coming here, to Vantacor, to my building. They did not know I worked here. It sounded absurd, but it was true. My family knew I worked in tech or science. To them, that meant I fixed computers or mixed chemicals in a basement. They had never asked for the name of my company. When I tried to tell them about my promotion to executive director, my mother had interrupted me to ask if I could fix her iPad password. They knew I lived in the city. They knew I had an office, but they had no idea that Vantacor Biomotion owned the skyline. My friend in private equity must have set this up. He likely told them he was sending them to an expert for vetting. He would not have used my name. He would have just said, "Go to the Vantacor building, suite 3400, and pitch to the director." They were coming to pitch their business to a stranger. They were coming to ask for money. And they had just banned that stranger from her own house. I looked at the text message again. Understood. The anger that had flared a moment ago began to cool. It crystallized into something harder, sharper. It felt like the ice in a drink that has been left to freeze solid. I picked up the fountain pen again. The contract with the Swiss pharmaceutical company was waiting. $250 million. I looked at the signature line. I was not just Lucy, the sister who ruined the mood. I was Lucy Fox, the woman who decided which technologies lived and which died in the competitive market of biomedical engineering. I was the woman who could look at a complex system, identify the weak point, and dismantle it or optimize it with a single decision. My family was a system, and it was failing. I pressed the nib of the pen to the paper. The ink flowed smoothly, black and permanent. I signed my name. The loops were sharp, the lines decisive. It was a signature that commanded authority. It was a signature that moved millions of dollars. I capped the pen with a satisfying click. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. The woman staring back at me was pale, with dark hair pulled back in a severe, efficient knot. Her eyes were tired. Yes, but they were dry. There were no tears. The tears belonged to the little girl in Texas who used to fix the fence Evan broke so he would not get in trouble. That little girl was gone. I picked up my phone. I did not text them back. I did not block them. I simply closed the messaging app and opened my security protocols for the office. I logged into the building's visitor management system. I saw the pending entry for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Visitor: Evan Harper. Visitor: Sloan Mercer. Host: Director of Systems Integrity. They thought they were walking into a room with a checkbook. They thought they were going to charm some faceless corporate executive with their smiles and their glossy brochures. They thought they could ban me from the barbecue on Saturday afternoon and become millionaires on Saturday morning. I confirmed the appointment. I sat back in my leather chair, the leather creaking softly. The rain lashed against the glass, violent and chaotic. But inside, everything was perfectly still. Everything was under control. I was not going to the barbecue. I understood that perfectly. But they were coming to me, and for the first time in my life, I was not going to fix the fence. I was not going to pay the bill. I was not going to cover the tracks. I reached for the file on my desk. Not the Swiss contract, but the personal file I kept locked in the bottom drawer. The file labeled Blue Heron Holdings. Inside were the deed, the mortgage statements, and the 3 lonely rent checks Evan had written in 3 years. I placed it on the desk, right next to the empty spot where they would sit tomorrow. Let them have their barbecue. Let them have their laughs tonight. Let them stare at their phones and feel smug about putting me in my place, because tomorrow, the sun would rise, the rain would stop, and they would step into the elevator. They would press the button for the 34th floor, and when the doors opened, they would find that the mood was not just something I ruined, it was something I controlled. I turned off the desk lamp. The office plunged into darkness, save for the city lights below. I walked to the door. my heels clicking rhythmically on the polished floor. "Understood," I whispered to the empty room. I walked out and locked the door behind me. The drive from the Vantacore building to my apartment usually took 20 minutes. Tonight, with the rain turning the highway into a river of red taillights, it took 40. The rhythm of the windshield wipers was hypnotic. Back and forth, back and forth. It was the same rhythm I had used to rock myself to sleep when I was 10 years old, lying in a bed that felt too small in a house that felt too loud. I parked my car in the underground garage, a silent concrete bunker that smelled of dust and exhaust. As I walked to the elevator, the silence of my life wrapped around me. It was a luxurious silence. It was expensive. I had paid a premium for thick walls and a concierge who knew never to let anyone up without calling first. But tonight, that silence felt heavy. It felt less like peace and more like the vacuum of space. The text message from Evan was still burning a hole in my digital memory. "Don't come." It was funny. Really. They acted as if banning me was a punishment. They did not understand that for the last 2 decades. Being included was the punishment. Being excluded was just the natural state of things. My mind drifted back, pulled by the gravity of the rain and the darkness, to the humid, salt-stained coast of Texas where we grew up. It was a small town, the kind where the rust ate the cars faster than the miles did. We lived in a house that always seemed to be leaning slightly to the left, as if it were trying to get away from itself. There were 2 children in that house, but there was only one person. Evan was the person. He was the golden child, the protagonist, the sun around which my parents orbited. He was loud, charismatic, and perpetually reckless. He had a smile that could disarm a traffic cop and a laugh that made you forget he had just broken your favorite thing. I was the utility. I was the insulation in the walls. I was the spare tire in the trunk. I was Lucy. I remembered a Tuesday in November. I was 19, working 2 jobs while taking night classes at the community college before I transferred. Evan was 16. He had just gotten his license. I was in the kitchen, studying organic chemistry, when I heard the crunch. It was the sickening sound of metal meeting wood, followed by the shatter of glass. I ran outside. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and wet pine. My father's truck, a red pickup he loved more than his own health, was embedded in the neighbor's fence. The front bumper was crumpled like a soda can. The white picket fence, which old Mr. Henderson had just painted the week before, was splinters. Evan was sitting in the driver's seat. He was not hurt. He was crying. My parents ran out a second later. My mother, Marianne, tore the door open. She did not look at the truck. She did not look at the fence. She grabbed Evan's face in her hands. "Oh my God," she screamed. "My baby, are you okay? Breathe. Evan, breathe." My father stood there, staring at the truck. He looked ready to explode. But then he looked at Evan, who was sobbing about a dog running into the road. A lie so obvious it hung in the humid air like fog. Evan claimed he swerved to save a puppy. There was no puppy. There were only skid marks that showed he had taken the corner too fast, showing off for the empty street. "It's okay. Son," my father said, his voice trembling. "It is just a truck. We are just glad you are safe." They hugged him, the 3 of them, a tight knot of relief and forgiveness in the middle of the driveway. I stood 5 feet away. I looked at the neighbor's house. The lights were coming on. Mr. Henderson was coming out. He was a mean man, a man who sued people for sport. My parents were too busy comforting the driver to notice the wreckage. I walked over to Mr. Henderson before he could start yelling. I stood between him and my family. "I am so sorry." I told him. My voice was steady. It was always steady. "I will fix it." He looked at me, his face purple with rage. "Who is going to pay for this?" he demanded. "That wood is custom cedar." "I will," I said. I did not have the money. I had savings for my next semester of tuition. I had money I had earned scrubbing dishes at the diner and filing papers at the mechanic's shop that weekend, while Evan played video games inside to recover from the trauma of almost killing a non-existent puppy. I was outside. I bought the lumber. I bought the white paint. I borrowed the tools. I spent 16 hours in the sun, pulling out splinters of wood and rebuilding Mr. Henderson's fence. My hands blistered. My back ached so badly I could hardly stand. When I finished, I walked into the kitchen. My father was drinking a beer. He looked at me, covered in sawdust and sweat. "Good job, Lucy," he said, without looking up from the television. "Good thing Evan didn't get hurt, right? That could have been bad." He did not offer to pay me back for the materials. He did not ask about my hands. He just took a sip of his beer and changed the channel. I went to my room and opened my chemistry textbook. I did not cry. I just calculated how many extra shifts I would need to work to replace the tuition money. I learned a lesson that day, one that was far more valuable than anything in the book. Evan breaks things, Lucy fixes them, and nobody thanks the glue for holding the vase together. 2 years later, I won the National Undergraduate Science Inquiry Award. It was a massive achievement. I had synthesized a protein structure that could potentially accelerate wound healing. I had beaten students from Ivy League universities. I came home for the weekend, holding the trophy. It was heavy, made of crystal and brass. I wanted to show them. I wanted, just for once, to be the shiny thing in the room. I walked into the living room. My mother was frantically running around. Evan was sitting on the couch, nursing a swollen ankle. He had tripped during a flag football game. "Mom, look," I said, holding up the award. "I won." She glanced at me. Her eyes swept over the trophy for less than a second. "That is nice." "Honey," she said, her voice distracted. "Put it there on the table. Listen, Evan's ankle is swelling up. We are out of ice. Can you run to the gas station and get 2 bags? I stood there. The crystal felt cold in my hands. "Did you hear me?" I asked. "I won nationals." "I heard you, Lucy," she snapped. "That is great. You are smart. We know. But your brother is in pain. Go get the ice." I put the trophy on the side table, behind a stack of old magazines. I went to the gas station. I bought the ice. I drove home with the bags freezing my lap. When I got back, they had forgotten I had even left. They were laughing at something Evan said. That was the day I stopped sharing. I realized that my success was not a source of pride for them. It was an annoyance. It was a reminder that while their golden boy was tripping over his own feet, the invisible daughter was climbing mountains. My competence made them feel inadequate. So, to keep the peace, to keep them loving me, I made myself smaller. I stopped talking about my grades. I stopped talking about the scholarships. When I got the job at Vantacor, I told them I was doing data entry for a medical supply company. "Oh, good." My father had said, "Steady work. Maybe you can get us a discount on aspirin." I rose through the ranks. I became a director. I bought the apartment. I started the LLC to save their house. But when I visited, I was still just Lucy, the boring one, the one without a husband, the one who did not have funny stories. And then came Sloan. Evan met Sloan Mercer at a bar 2 years ago. She was perfect for him. She was loud, she was colorful, and she required an audience for every breath she took. She was a woman who treated life like a reality television show where she was the star and everyone else was a prop. Sloan sniffed out the dynamic instantly. Predators always know who the weak link is. She saw that Evan was the prince and I was the servant, and she decided to have fun with it. She started with small digs. At Thanksgiving last year, she watched me pour a glass of water. "You are so precise," she giggled, leaning into Evan. "Look at her. She holds the glass like it is a beaker. Do you ever just relax, Lucy? Or are you analyzing the chemical composition of the ice?" Evan laughed. He laughed loud and hard, looking at Sloan with adoration. "She works in a lab." "Babe," Evan said, "she smells like formaldehyde half the time." I did not smell like formaldehyde. I smelled like Chanel No. 5 and Success, but they would not know what success smelled like if it hit them in the face. I just smiled. I took a sip of water. "Does it get lonely?" Sloan asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Living with all those machines? I mean, Evan and I are so connected. We are like soulmates. I cannot imagine being married to my job. She was not asking. She was performing. She was showing the family that she was the vibrant, loving woman, and I was the cold, sterile spinster, and my mother ate it up. "Oh, Lucy is just independent," my mother said, waving her hand. "She has always been a bit of a lone wolf, not like you. Sloane, you are such a breath of fresh air." I sat there, cutting my turkey. I paid for this turkey. I thought, I paid for the wine Sloane is drinking. I paid for the chair she is sitting on. But I said nothing. I thought that if I took the abuse, if I let them use me as the punching bag for their jokes, they would eventually tire of it. I thought that my utility was my currency. If I was useful enough, if I was passive enough, they would have to keep me around. I was wrong. Utility is not love. Utility is a contract, and contracts can be terminated the moment a cheaper option appears, or, in this case, the moment the utility provider becomes inconvenient. The text message banning me from the barbecue was not a sudden break. It was not a shock. It was the inevitable conclusion of 34 years of training. Don't come. They did not want me there because I was a reminder of reality. Sloane wanted to spin her fantasies about their new business venture. Evan wanted to pretend he was a big shot. My presence, my quiet, knowing eyes, would puncture their balloon. They wanted the house I paid for, but they did not want the woman who signed the checks. I stood in my dark apartment, looking out at the city rain. The pain was there, yes, a dull, aching throb in the center of my chest, where the hope used to be, the hope that one day my father would look at me with the same pride he had for Evan. The hope that my mother would ask me about my day and actually listen to the answer, but alongside the pain, there was something else, clarity. The knife they had planted in my back during childhood had finally been pulled out, and now I was holding it. They called me a machine. They called me cold. They called me a paper pusher. Tomorrow morning, at 9 o'clock, they were going to find out exactly what this paper pusher could do. I walked to my bedroom. I needed to sleep. I needed to be rested. I was not going to be the sister tomorrow. I was not going to be the daughter. I was going to be the executive director of systems integrity, and I had a very messy system to clean up. Saturday morning in the financial district was a study in desolation. The Vantacore Biomotion Tower, usually a hive of 3,000 kinetic minds, stood silent. The air conditioning hummed a low, constant thrum, a white noise that I found infinitely more comforting than the chaotic chatter of a family dinner. I was at my desk by 8 o'clock in the morning. The light at this hour was different. It was cleaner. It cut through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the 34th floor with a surgical brightness, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I had a demo to prepare for Monday, a stress test of our neural linkage software. I needed absolute focus. I needed the kind of sterility that only a locked skyscraper could provide. At 8:45, the silence broke. The intercom on my desk chirped. It was a harsh, digital sound. I pressed the button. "Security," I said. My voice was flat. "Ms. Fox," the voice of the weekend guard. "Marcus," crackled through the speaker. "I have 2 individuals in the lobby. They do not have badges. They are claiming to have a 9 o'clock appointment with the money handler." I paused. The money handler. It was a crude, reductionist way to describe a meeting with a senior executive, but it sounded exactly like something Sloane would say. She viewed corporations not as structures of labor and innovation, but as ATMs with revolving doors. "Do they have names?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Mr. Evan Harper and Miss Sloane Mercer," Marcus replied. He sounded skeptical. "They are insisting. The woman is raising her voice. She says she does not need a badge because she is family." I looked at the monitor on my left. I pulled up the lobby camera feed. There they were. The camera angle was high, looking down on the marble expanse of the reception area. Sloane was wearing a white dress that was too short for a boardroom and too formal for a brunch. She was leaning over the security desk, her finger pointing at Marcus. Even in the grainy black and white footage, I could see the tension in her neck. She was performing. She was playing the role of the outraged VIP. Evan stood behind her. He wore a blazer over a t-shirt, a look that screamed Silicon Valley startup hopeful, but on him, it just looked like he had forgotten to do laundry. He was shifting his weight from foot to foot. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the floor. He looked everywhere except at the security guard. "Let them up," I said. "Ms. Fox?" Marcus hesitated. "Protocol requires—" "Override protocol." "Marcus," I interrupted, "send them to the 34th floor." "But Marcus?" "Yes." "Ma'am? Log the entry. Keep the camera footage tagged and saved to the external server. Timestamp everything. From the moment they stepped off the curb outside to the moment they leave. Do not overwrite a single second. Understood." "Ms. Fox?" I cut the connection. I stood up and walked to the glass wall of my office. I adjusted my blazer. It was charcoal gray, tailored to within a millimeter of perfection. I smoothed my hair. I walked over to the door. It was a heavy slab of frosted glass. Beside it, mounted on the wall at eye level, was a brushed steel plaque. It was new, installed only 2 months ago. Lucy Fox, Executive Director. Systems Integrity. I unlocked the door, but I did not open it. I went back to my desk. I sat down. I placed my hands on the cool surface of the mahogany. I waited. I watched the elevator indicator on my screen. It moved up. Level 10, level 20, level 30. The building was designed to intimidate. The hallways were long and echoey, lined with abstract art and cold steel accents. It was a space designed to make human beings feel small, to remind them that they were inside a machine much larger than themselves. I heard the elevator ding down the hall. Then came the footsteps. First, the sharp, staccato click of high heels. Sloane walked with a heavy strike, a walk that demanded the ground acknowledge her presence. Then, the softer, shuffling scuff of sneakers. Evan. I could hear their voices as they approached. The sound carried clearly through the ventilation gaps. "This place is ridiculous." Sloane's voice echoed. "Why do we have to walk so far? It is just a meeting. It is a big company." "Babe," Evan mumbled. "Whatever." Sloane snapped. "Just remember the pitch. Do not stutter." "Evan, and let me handle the numbers. You just look creative." I stared at the door. The shadow of 2 figures fell across the frosted glass. They stopped. Silence. It was a heavy, confused silence. I could imagine them standing there. I could imagine Sloane's eyes scanning the hallway, looking for a receptionist, looking for someone to announce her arrival. I could imagine her gaze landing on the steel plaque beside my door. I counted to 3 in my head. 1, 2, 3. I did not wait for them to knock. I pressed the button under my desk that released the magnetic lock on the door. It clicked loudly. "Come in," I said. My voice was not loud, but in the acoustic perfection of the office, it carried The door pushed open. Sloane entered first. She had a smile plastered on her face, a dazzling, high-wattage expression prepared for a stranger. Her hand was already extended for a handshake. "Good morning. We are so excited to—" She froze. Her hand dropped. Her mouth stayed open, but the words died in her throat. She was looking at me. She was looking at Lucy, the sister-in-law she had banned from eating a hamburger 12 hours ago. Lucy, who was sitting behind a desk that cost more than Evan's car. Lucy, who was framed by the panoramic view of the city she claimed to despise. Evan walked into her back. "Oof, watch it. Sloane," he muttered. He stepped around her. Then he saw me. The blood drained from his face so fast it looked like a magic trick. He went pale, then gray. His eyes darted from me to the nameplate on the door, then back to me. He looked like a child who had been caught lighting matches in a library. "Lucy?" he whispered. "Hello, Evan," I said. "Hello, Sloane." "Please, sit down." I gestured to the 2 low-slung leather chairs opposite my desk. Neither of them moved. The processing power required to reconcile their version of reality with the scene before them was causing a lag. "What are you doing here?" Sloane asked. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. She looked around the room as if expecting the real executive to pop out from behind a curtain. Is this a joke? Did you sneak in here? I am working. Sloan. I said, this is my office. That is my name on the door. You have an appointment with the director. I am the director. No. Sloan said. She shook her head. No. We have a meeting with a venture capital liaison. Your friend set it up. My professional acquaintance asked me to vet a pitch for him. I corrected. He sent you to the best person for the job. Now, you are 2 minutes into your allotted time. Are you going to sit, or are you going to leave? Evan pulled at Sloane's sleeve. Sit down. Sloan, he hissed. She jerked her arm away, but she sat. She perched on the edge of the chair, her spine rigid. She smoothed her dress, her eyes narrowing. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a rapid calculation. I could see the gears turning. She was realizing that this could be played. Well, she said, letting out a breathy, forced laugh. This is unexpected, but actually, it is better, is it? I asked. Of course, she said. She crossed her legs. Family makes things easier. We do not have to do the whole song and dance. You know us. You know Evan's potential. She reached into her oversized designer tote bag and pulled out a thick, glossy binder. She slid it across the desk. It hit the mahogany with a heavy thud. The cover was navy blue with gold-embossed lettering. The Aurora Collective. I did not open it. I just looked at it. What is this? I asked. It is the future, Sloan said. She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. It is a holistic lifestyle brand. We are going to curate experiences, high-end retreat planning, organic supplement lines, exclusive networking events for the creative class. It is huge. Lucy, everyone is moving toward wellness. I looked at Evan. He was staring at his shoes. And what is your role, Evan? I asked. He looked up, startled. I am the Chief Visionary Officer. I blinked. Chief Visionary Officer, a title that meant absolutely nothing. I see, I said. I looked back at Sloan. And you are the CEO? Naturally, she said. I opened the binder. I flipped past the mood boards, past the photos of people doing yoga on cliffs, past the meaningless mission statements about synergy and vibrations. I went straight to the back, the financials. I ran my finger down the column. Projected operating costs, marketing budget, lease acquisition for a headquarters, salary draws for the founders. I stopped at the bottom line. The ask, $1,800,000. It was not a loan request. It was listed as seed capital injection in the terms section, under repayment structure. It said, equity conversion based on 5-year maturation. Translation, give us the money, and if we do not go bankrupt in 5 years, we might give you some stock that is worth $0. I looked up. 1.8 million. I said. Sloan nodded vigorously. It is a conservative estimate. We need to launch big. We need the optics to be right. We need the office space in the arts district. We need the inventory. And you want me to sign off on this recommendation? I asked. Sloan laughed again. It was a brittle sound. Well, not just recommend. Lucy, since it is you, we were thinking we could structure this differently. You could come in as a silent partner. You guarantee the loan. Or better yet, you provide the liquidity directly. I mean, look at this place. She gestured vaguely at the office, at the expensive art, at the view. Clearly, you have resources we did not know about. She continued, and since you are family, you would want to keep the equity in the house. It is a win-win. You help your brother build his legacy, and you get to be part of something. Cool. For once, the insult was subtle, wrapped in a sales pitch, but it was there. Cool. For once, I closed the binder. I placed my hands on top of it. I looked at Evan. Evan, do you have any experience in supply chain management for organic supplements? No, he said softly. Do you have a venue contract for these retreats? No. Do you have a single paying customer? No. I turned to Sloan. You are asking for nearly $2 million for a concept that exists entirely in a binder. I said, you want me to fund a lifestyle you have not earned, under the guise of a business that has no structure. It is a startup, Sloan snapped. That is how it works. You take a risk on the people. I paused. I let the silence stretch out until the air conditioning sounded like a roar. The people, I repeated. I picked up my phone. I unlocked it. I opened the messaging app. I held the screen up, facing them. The text message from 12 hours ago was glowing on the screen. Don't come to the weekend BBQ. I watched Evan's eyes focus on the text. He flinched. Sloan stared at it, her expression hardening. You banned me from eating a hot dog in a backyard that I pay for. I said, my voice was very quiet, very calm. You told me I bring the mood down. You told me I'm too intense, too sterile, too much of a killjoy to be allowed around your friends. I lowered the phone. If I'm too toxic to attend a barbecue. Sloan, why on earth would I be acceptable as a partner in a $2 million business? Sloan's face turned a blotchy red. That is different, she hissed. That is social. This is business. It is all the same to me. I said, character is not a jacket you take off when you enter a boardroom. You treated me like a nuisance yesterday. Today, you want me to be your savior. I slid the binder back across the desk. It stopped at the edge, teetering slightly. I am not signing this, I said. Sloan stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. You have to, she said. Her voice rose. You cannot just say no. We have already put deposits down. We have hired a branding agency. We need the capital by Monday. That sounds like a mismanagement of personal funds. I said, not a business emergency. Evan stood up too. Lucy, please, he said. His voice was cracking. I really need this to work. I told people it was happening. Then you lied to them. Evan, I said. Sloan leaned over the desk. She placed her hands flat on the wood, invading my space. Her eyes were wide. Manic. Do not do this. Lucy, she warned, you do not want to make an enemy of me. You think you are safe up here in your glass tower? You have no idea what I can do. I can make your life very lonely. I can make sure you never see your parents again. I looked at her hands. Her manicured nails were digging into the finish of my desk. I pressed the intercom button. Security. I said, yes. Ms. Fox? Marcus answered instantly. Please send an escort to the 34th floor. I said, my guests are leaving. I looked up at Sloan. You are threatening me in a room that is recording audio and video. I said, and you are trespassing. Sloan snatched the binder off the desk. She looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. It was the look of a parasite that had just been detached from its host. You are going to regret this. She spat. You are a cold, miserable bitch, and you are going to die alone with your money. Come on, Evan, she commanded. She turned and marched out. Evan lingered for a second. He looked at me. There was no apology in his eyes, only fear. He was not afraid of losing me. He was afraid of her, and he was afraid of the debts he had already accrued. He followed her. I watched them go. I watched the door swing shut. The silence rushed back in. I looked at the empty chairs. I looked at the spot on the desk where the binder had been. $1.8 million. They had walked in here expecting me to hand it over because we shared a last name. They thought the banality of their cruelty would be forgotten the moment they needed a check. My hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the sheer physical exertion of holding back the years of rage that wanted to scream. I took a deep breath. I smoothed the surface of the desk with my palm. I checked the time. It was 9:20. The meeting had lasted less than 15 minutes. I opened my email. I composed a new message to the legal department. I needed to document this interaction formally. But before I could type the first word, a thought occurred to me. Sloan had said something. We have already put deposits down. With what money? Evan had no savings. My parents had no savings. Sloan had a history of consulting gigs that never paid. I frowned. I minimized the email window and opened the secure banking portal for the LLC, the account that held the house, the account that held my personal emergency funds, which I sometimes used to cover the property repairs. I logged in. The balance was correct. But then I clicked on the credit monitoring tab, a feature I had installed on my family's profiles years ago when I first bought the house, just to keep an eye on things. There was a flag, a pending inquiry. My heart slowed down. My vision narrowed. I was not done yet. They had left the building, but they had left something behind, a trail. I picked up the phone again. I did not go back to the demo preparation. The demo could wait. The system integrity of my own life had just been breached, and I needed to find the leak. The digital clock on my bedside table read 11:14 at night. I was not asleep. I was sitting in my living room, the glow of my laptop screen serving as the only light source in the apartment. I had a glass of water on the coaster. Untouched. The adrenaline from the morning meeting had faded, replaced by a cold, prickly vigilance. I knew Sloan. I knew that when a narcissist is denied their supply, they do not just walk away, they rage, they scramble, they look for a back door. I had spent the evening monitoring my accounts, but everything had been quiet, too quiet. Then, at 11:15 exactly, my phone vibrated. It was not a text message. It was a push notification from my identity protection service. Alert. New credit inquiry. Detected. I picked up the phone. My heart did not race. It slowed down. This was the moment the other shoe dropped. This was the breach. I swiped the notification open. Institution. Meridian Ridge Bank. Type. Small business loan/commercial line of credit. Status. Pending review. I felt a surge of ice water in my veins. Meridian Ridge was a mid-sized regional bank, the kind that advertised friendly service and quick approvals for local entrepreneurs. I did not bank with them. I had never walked into a Meridian Ridge branch in my life. I opened my laptop browser and navigated to the credit bureau's detailed report. I logged in with my two-factor authentication. There it was. An application had been submitted electronically 40 minutes ago. Applicant name, Lucy J. Fox. Co-applicant, Evan Harper. Business entity, the Aurora Collective. Requested amount, $420,000. I stared at the number. $420,000. It was not the $1.8 million they had asked for in my office. This was a smaller amount, likely calculated to fly under the radar of automated underwriting systems. Or perhaps it was the maximum amount they could apply for without requiring an in-person interview. I clicked on the application details. Social Security number, mine. Date of birth, mine. Current address, 420 Oak Creek Drive. I stopped breathing for a second. They had used the address of the house I owned, the house they lived in, by listing it as my current address. They were attempting to bypass the fraud algorithms that check for geographical inconsistencies. They were pretending I lived there with them. They were pretending we were partners. But the Social Security number, that was the key. Evan knew my birthday. That was public knowledge. But my Social Security number was not. Then I remembered. The filing cabinet. Years ago, when I first set up the LLC to buy the house, I had brought a box of documents over to my parents' place. I had sat at the dining room table, sorting through tax forms and deed applications. I had left a folder there, a folder labeled House Docs. It contained copies of my tax returns from that year, which, at the time, still displayed the full 9 digits. I had forgotten about it. I had assumed it was safe. It was my parents' house. I was wrong. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a family dispute. This was federal crime. This was identity theft. Wire fraud, bank fraud. I picked up my phone. I did not call Evan. I did not call my mother. I dialed the 24-hour fraud hotline for Meridian Ridge Bank. A recorded voice answered, asking for my account number. I pressed 0. I pressed 0 again. Please hold for the next available representative. I waited. I watched the minutes tick by on the laptop clock. 11:22. Meridian Ridge. This is Jason. How can I help you? My name is Lucy Fox. I said, My voice was crisp, devoid of emotion. I have just received an alert regarding a commercial loan application filed in my name. Okay, Ms. Fox, let me pull that up. Do you have the application ID? I gave him the number from the credit report. I see it here. Jason said, $420,000 for the Aurora Collective. It looks like it is in the final stages of automated approval. We just need to verify. Stop. I said, I did not authorize this application. There was a pause on the line. The sound of typing stopped. Excuse me? I am the person listed as the primary applicant. I said, I did not submit this. I am currently in my apartment in downtown Austin. The address listed on that application is not my primary residence. The co-applicant, Evan Harper, does not have my permission to use my information. Okay. Jason's voice shifted. It became serious. Professional. Ms. Fox, are you stating that this is a fraudulent application? Yes. I said, this is identity theft. I want you to flag this application immediately. I want you to freeze it. And I want a record that I called you at 11:25 at night to report it. Understood. I am locking the file now. The application is denied. I am placing a fraud alert on your profile for our bank. No further applications can be processed without a video verification. Thank you. Jason. I said, please send the confirmation number to my email. Not the email on the application, my actual email. I gave him my address. I hung up. I sat back in the dark. The application was dead. The money was blocked. And now, the backlash would begin. They would know instantly. They were probably staring at a screen right now, hitting refresh, waiting for the approved banner to pop up so they could pop a bottle of champagne. Instead, they were going to see denied. Fraud alert. 2 minutes later, my phone lit up. It was not a notification this time. It was a text. From Mom. Lucy? Evan says the bank system crashed. He says you did something. What did you do? I did not reply. From Dad. Pick up the phone. Evan is crying. He says you flagged him. Why are you doing this to your brother? He just needs a start. I looked at the words. He just needs a start. They thought $420,000 of fraudulent debt was a start. They thought stealing my financial identity was a family favor. Then came Evan. You ruined it. You actually ruined it. We had vendors lined up. We had the lease ready to sign on Monday. Why do you hate me? I felt a wave of nausea. Not guilt. Nausea. The sheer distortion of reality was making me sick. They truly believed they were the victims here. They believed that my credit score was a communal resource, like the water from the hose in the backyard. I took a screenshot of the text. I saved it. Then, a message from a number I did not have saved, but I knew who it was. If you do not fix this by morning, you will regret it. I am not playing games. Lucy, you think you can starve us out? Watch what happens next. Sloan. I took a screenshot. I created a new folder on my laptop desktop. I named it Evidence. I dragged the credit report PDF, the fraud confirmation email from Jason, and the screenshots of the texts into the folder. I uploaded the folder to an encrypted cloud server. My phone pinged again, this time. It was an email notification. It was from our internal PR department at Vanticor, a standard automated alert that I had set up for my name and the company name. Keyword alert, Lucy Fox. I opened the email. It contained a link to a post on a public social media platform. The post was from Sloan Mercer. It was vague. Of course, she was too smart to use my full name yet, but the timing was unmistakable. It is so sad when people who have made it pull up the ladder behind them. The post read, imagine watching your own family struggle while you sit in an ivory tower. Hoarding wealth you do not even need. Some people are so cold they have ice in their veins instead of blood. Toxic gatekeepers are the worst kind of abusers. Family trauma. Toxic sister. Financial abuse. It had been up for 10 minutes. It already had 15 likes. My mother had liked it. I read the hashtags again. Financial abuse. She was projecting. She was taking the crime she had just attempted to commit against me and accusing me of doing it to her. She was building a narrative. She was planting the seeds so that when I eventually took legal action, she could claim I was just a vindictive sister trying to crush them. I did not comment. I did not report the post. I took a screenshot. I added it to the evidence folder. I closed the browser. I sat in the dark for a long time. The rain had stopped outside, but the city below was still wet and glistening. I finally understood the barbecue. The text banning me from the barbecue was not just about me being a mood killer. It was a tactical maneuver. They wanted me away from the house this weekend. They wanted to make sure I did not drop by. Why? Because the bank probably sent a physical mailer to confirm the address. Or maybe they needed to stage photos of the home office for the application. Or maybe they just needed to feel like they owned the place completely before they leveraged it against my will. They banned me from the physical space so they could invade my digital space. I was not a sister to them. I was a resource to be mined. And when the mine refused to yield, they brought out the dynamite. I looked at the clock. It was nearly midnight. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a contact I had not used in 2 years. Renee Calder, attorney at law. Renee was a shark. We had gone to university together. She had specialized in corporate litigation and asset protection. She was the kind of lawyer who did not just win cases. She dismantled the opposition until there was nothing left but dust. I pressed call. It rang 4 times. Fox? Renee's voice was raspy, sleep-heavy. It is midnight. Lucy, you better be in jail or dead. I need to hire you. I said, can it wait until brunch? No. I said, I need to file a cease and desist, and I need to prepare a packet for identity theft prosecution. There was a rustle of sheets on the other end. The sleep vanished from Renee's voice. Who is the target? She asked. My brother and his wife. I said, and potentially my parents as accomplices. Renee let out a low whistle. The nuclear option. I thought you paid their rent? I did. I said, tonight, they tried to take out a $420,000 business loan in my name using my social security number. Jesus, Renee said, that is a felony. That is federal. Lucy, I know. I said, I stopped it. But they are escalating. Sloan is threatening me. She is posting online. They are claiming I am abusing them. Okay, Renee said. I could hear the click of a lamp turning on. Here is what you are going to do. Do not talk to them. Do not answer the phone. Do not reply to the texts. Let them scream into the void. Send me everything you have. The credit report, the texts, the screenshots of the posts. I will have a draft of the letter ready by 8 a.m. I want to stop this. Renee, I said, I do not just want to defend myself. I want to shut it down. We will. Renee said, if they used your SSN, the gloves are off. We are not just talking about a civil dispute anymore. We are talking about fraud. Do you have the leverage? I have the house. I said, the house they are sleeping in right now. It is in my LLC. Good, Renee said. Check the lease. Check the residency clauses. If they are using the premises to commit fraud, they are in breach. We can evict them. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted, replaced by the cold armor of the law. Do it, I said. I will send the retainer agreement in the morning. Renee said, get some sleep. Lucy, you are going to need it. Tomorrow is going to be a bloodbath. I hung up. I walked over to the window. I pressed my hand against the cold glass. I looked in the direction of the suburbs, toward Oak Creek Drive. I imagined them there, in the kitchen I had paid for, frantically trying to figure out why the money had not hit their account. I imagined Sloan pacing, her face twisted in anger. I imagined Evan crying, terrified of the mess he had made. For years, I had protected them from the consequences of their own mediocrity. I had been the buffer between them and the hard reality of the world. Tonight, the buffer was gone. They wanted to play business? They wanted to play with high finance? Fine. They were about to learn that in the real world, when you forge a signature, you do not get a timeout. You get a subpoena. I turned away from the window and went to the kitchen. I poured the water down the sink. I opened the fridge and took out a bottle of cold brew coffee. I was not going to sleep. I sat back down at my laptop. I opened the folder marked Evidence. I had work to do. My phone was hot against my ear. It was 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. I had not slept. The caffeine in my system was vibrating at a frequency that made the world feel sharp and dangerous. Renee Calder was on the other end of the line. She sounded wide awake, the scratching of a pen audible in the background. "We have stopped the immediate bleeding with the bank," Renee said, her voice cutting through the static. "But Lucy, you need to listen to me. People who commit identity theft with this level of audacity, using a home address, using a correct social security number, they do not do it in a vacuum. They do it because they feel entitled to the asset. They do not see it as stealing. They see it as accessing what is theirs." I stared at the screen of my laptop. The evidence folder was open. "What are you asking, Renee?" I said. "I am asking about the collateral," she said. "The loan application listed the property at 420 Oak Creek Drive as the business address. But usually, when fraudsters get this bold, they try to secure the physical ground beneath them first. Is there any other asset they are clinging to?" "The house," I said. "It is just the house." "Do you manage the utilities? The tax bills? The insurance?" "Yes," I said. "Everything is automated through the Blue Heron Holdings portal. I get the notifications. They just live there." "Check it," Renee commanded. "Right now. Do not assume the automation is working. Check the change logs. If they tried to hijack your credit, they might have tried to hijack the mail." I put her on speaker. I opened the dashboard for the county tax assessor and the insurance provider. I had set these accounts up years ago, setting them to autopay to avoid exactly the kind of drama I was now knee-deep in. I logged into the county tax portal first. Everything looked normal at first glance. The property tax bill for the current year had been paid by me, but then I clicked on the Profile Settings tab. There was a pending request dated 3 weeks ago. Request to change mailing address. New address. Post Office Box 772. Austin, Texas. I frowned. I did not own a post office box. "They tried to redirect the tax notices," I told Renee. 3 weeks ago, it was rejected because the system requires a notary for an address change on a commercial LLC, but they tried. "Keep looking," Renee said. "Check the insurance." I switched tabs to the homeowner's insurance provider. This was a high-value policy. It covered the structure, the liability, and significantly. It had a replacement cost clause. If the house burned down, the payout would be substantial. I navigated to the beneficiary and policyholder section. My breath hitched. There was a flag on the account. A digital note from a customer service representative dated 4 days ago. Note: individual identified as Sloan Harper called to inquire about adding the Aurora Collective as a loss payee. Individual claimed to be the wife of the owner. Request denied pending written authorization from Lucy Fox. I read it again. Loss payee. "Renee," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "They tried to add their fake company as a loss payee on the insurance policy." "Jesus," Renee breathed. "What does that mean?" I asked. Though I knew the answer, I just wanted to hear her say it. I wanted the law to define the horror I was feeling. "It means," Renee said, her tone stripping away all professional detachment, "that if there was a fire, or a flood, or a disaster, the check would not go to you. It would go to them, or at least, it would be cut jointly, requiring their signature." I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. It was not the cold of the air conditioning. It was the cold of realization. This was not just about borrowing money to start a business. This was a coup. They were systematically trying to erase my name from the asset while keeping the asset itself. They wanted the house, but they did not want the landlord. "This is not a misunderstanding," Renee said firmly. "This is a sequence of predicate acts: wire fraud, mail fraud, attempted insurance fraud. Lucy, listen to me. Your brother is not smart enough to know what a loss payee is. Evan thinks a deductible is something you guess on a tax form." "I know," I said. "He is being directed." "We need to secure the physical documents," Renee said. How did they get your social security number? Did you give it to them? No, I said. Never. Then the memory hit me. It was a visual flash, sharp and bright. 3 years ago, the dining room table at my parents' house. I was setting up the LLC. I had brought a plastic accordion folder with all my incorporation papers, my personal tax returns from the previous 2 years to prove income for the mortgage, and a photocopy of my social security card. I had finished the paperwork. I had left the folder there. I left a file, I said, at my parents' house, in the study. It has everything. Get it, Renee said. If that file is still there, you need to retrieve it. If it is gone, we know exactly where the leak is. I can't go there, I said. They banned me. The barbecue is today. The barbecue is in the afternoon, Renee said. It is 7:10 in the morning. Go now. Use your key. You are the landlord. You have the right to inspect the premises, especially if you suspect your tenant is using the property to commit a felony. I hung up. I dressed in 10 minutes. I did not put on a suit. I put on jeans and a black sweater. I put on boots that made no sound. I drove to Oak Creek Drive. The rain had stopped, but the sky was a bruised purple, heavy and low. The streets of the suburb were quiet. It was too early for the lawnmowers. Too early for the children. I pulled up 2 houses down from 420. I did not park in the driveway. I did not want to block them in. I did not want a confrontation. I just wanted the file. The house, my house, looked peaceful. The grass was green, thanks to the landscaping service I paid for. The new fence I had installed last year was white and pristine. It looked like the American dream. It looked innocent. I walked up the driveway. My heart was beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I had a key. Of course I had a key. I was the owner. But I had never used it without knocking. I had always respected their illusion of ownership. Today, the illusion was dead. I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly. I pushed the door open. The house smelled of sleep and old coffee. There was a pile of decorations in the hallway. Banners that said, "Family Fun," bags of charcoal, stacks of paper plates, the preparations for the party I was banned from. I stepped inside and closed the door softly. I listened. From the master bedroom upstairs, I could hear the faint sound of snoring. Evan. He always snored when he was stressed. I moved quickly. To the left of the hallway was the study, a room my father used to watch sports in and store his fishing gear. There was a metal filing cabinet in the corner, an old beige thing from the 90s. I walked over to it. The top drawer was open an inch. I pulled it. It screeched slightly on its rusted tracks. I looked inside. It was a mess. My father was a disorganized man, but he was consistently disorganized. He kept things in chronological piles. This was different. This was chaotic. Folders were bent. Papers were shoved in haphazardly. I flipped through the hanging files. Medical, car, recipes. I found the tab labeled Lucy. It was empty. The accordion folder was gone. I felt a surge of validation that tasted like ash. They had taken it. They had gone into this cabinet, removed my private financial history, and used it to try and bankrupt me. I looked down at the bottom of the drawer. There were loose papers scattered there, debris from the ransacking, receipts, old warranties, and one piece of paper that did not belong. It was a printout, a confirmation page from a website. It was crumpled, as if someone had balled it up to throw it away but missed the bin and then just shoved it into the drawer in a hurry. I smoothed it out. It was an inquiry confirmation for a background check service. FindAnyone.com. The search subject was not me. The search subject was Mason Creed. I stared at the name. Mason Creed. I did not know a Mason Creed, but the date on the search was from 2 months ago, and the billing information on the bottom of the page caught my eye. Billed to S. Mercer. Card ending in 4412. Sloan. Sloan had been searching for a man named Mason Creed, and she had hidden the evidence in my father's filing cabinet. Buried under my stolen tax returns. Why was she looking for him? And why hide it? I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. I turned to leave. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound seemed deafening in the quiet house. I froze. I looked at the screen. It was a text from my father. He was not upstairs. The text had come from the garage. He must be in there, prepping the grill. Dad, I see your car outside. Do not come in. Evan is asleep. Sloan is on a rampage. Just go. Lucy. I stared at the text. He saw my car. He knew I was here. He was not coming out to greet me. He was not coming out to ask why I was visiting at 7:30 in the morning. He was telling me to leave to avoid waking the baby. I typed back, "They stole my identity." "Dad, they took the file from the cabinet." The 3 dots appeared instantly. He was typing. He stopped. He typed again. "Dad, it is just money. Lucy, you can fix it. You always fix it. Please, don't make a scene. The neighbors will see. People will laugh at us if the police come. Just go." I read the words. People will laugh at us. That was it. That was the sum total of his morality. He did not care that his daughter was being defrauded by his son. He cared that the neighbors might see a squad car. He cared about the optics of the barbecue. He was willing to sacrifice my financial future to preserve the facade of a happy, normal family. I looked at the empty spot in the filing cabinet. I closed the drawer. I did not slam it. I closed it gently. I walked out of the study. I walked past the family fun banner. I walked out the front door and locked it behind me. I sat in my car. I took a picture of the house. I took a picture of the crumpled paper I had found. I sent the photo of the paper to Renee. "Who is Mason Creed?" I texted. I put the car in drive. As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw the curtain in the living room twitch. Someone was watching. I drove back to the city. The numbness was gone. In its place was a cold, hard resolve. Renee called me 10 minutes later. "I am running the name Mason Creed," she said. "But Lucy, I found something else in the LLC logs while you were gone. I did a deep dive on the IP addresses that accessed your account to try and change the insurance." "And?" "The request didn't come from the house," Renee said. "It came from a mobile device, but the recovery email linked to the device isn't Evan's, and it isn't Sloan's current email." "What is it?" "It is an old address," Renee said. velvetrope88@email.com. "That sounds like Sloan," I said. "She was born in 88. "Right," Renee said. "But here's the kicker. That email address is linked to a public court docket in Nevada from 5 years ago, a small claims case." "What kind of case?" "Unpaid wages," Renee said. "But the defendant wasn't Sloan Mercer. The defendant was a woman named Sloan Verlack." "Verlack?" I repeated. "It was her maiden name, or a previous married name," Renee said. "I am cross-referencing it now, but Lucy, if she changed her name, and if she is running background checks on a guy named Mason Creed, she is hiding a history. She isn't just a grifter, she is running from something." I touched the paper in my pocket. "Find him," I said. "Find Mason Creed. If Sloan is afraid of him, or looking for him, he knows something. He knows the playbook." "I am on it," Renee said. "But Lucy, about the house. Now that we know they tampered with the insurance and the tax records, we have grounds, not just for a lawsuit, for immediate termination of tenancy." "Do it," I said. "Draft the notice to quit, but don't serve it yet." "Why not?" "Because," I said, looking at the city skyline approaching, "I have an invitation to a barbecue. Well, I have a non-invitation, and I think it is time I RSVP." "You are going to the party?" Renee asked. "I am going to deliver the mail," I said. "They wanted the documents so badly. I am going to bring them the only documents that matter." "Be careful," Renee warned. "Cornered animals bite." "I know," I said. "But they are about to find out that I am not the animal in this cage. I am the zookeeper." I hung up. I arrived back at my apartment. I walked into my home office. I sat down and opened a new browser window. I typed in the name, Sloan Verlack. The results populated. Not many, but enough. a defunct wedding planning website, a forum post about a rental deposit dispute, and one image, a photo from a local newspaper in Reno, Nevada, dated 6 years ago. It was a photo of a couple at a gala. The woman was Sloan, younger, with darker hair, but the hungry smile was the same. She was clinging to the arm of a man. The caption read, "Local entrepreneur Mason Creed and fiancée Sloan Verlack." I looked at Mason Creed. He looked tired. He looked like a man who was holding up a heavy weight. He looked exactly like Evan looked yesterday. I zoomed in on his face. "Hello, Mason," I whispered. "Tell me how she broke you." I picked up my phone. I needed to find him before the barbecue started. If he was the ghost of Christmas past, I needed to hear his story before I became the ghost of Christmas present. The courier arrived at 10:30 in the morning. He did not come from a law firm, and he did not come from a bank. He was a standard bike messenger, dripping wet from the residual humidity of the storm, holding a manila envelope sealed with heavy packing tape. "Sign here," he said. I signed. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. There was no return address, but I did not need one. I recognized the handwriting on the front immediately. It was shaky, cramped, and leaning to the right, it was my father's handwriting. I took the package into my kitchen and placed it on the granite island. I used a paring knife to slice through the tape. Inside, there was no letterhead, no formal greeting, just a stack of papers clipped together and a single sheet of yellow legal pad paper with a note scrawled in blue ballpoint pen. "Lucy, I am sorry. I hired a private investigator 2 years ago, right after Evan brought her home. Something felt wrong. I got this report back a week before the wedding. I wanted to stop it. I truly did. But your mother was so happy." Evan was finally smiling. "I was afraid that if I showed them this, they would hate me. I was afraid Evan would do something stupid if I took her away. So I buried it. I see now that I was wrong. I cannot stand up to her. You know how your mother gets. But maybe you can use this. Please do not tell them I sent it. I just want peace. Dad." I stared at the note. A bitter taste flooded my mouth. It was the taste of betrayal. My father. Glenn. The man who laughed at me in the group chat. The man who told me to leave the house this morning so the neighbors would not talk. Had known. He had known for 2 years that Sloan was dangerous. He had sacrificed my safety and my assets to avoid an uncomfortable conversation at the dinner table. He had thrown me to the wolf because he was too cowardly to shoot it. I pushed the note aside and picked up the report. It was professional work, thorough. Subject: Sloan Verlack, a.k.a. Sloan Mercer, a.k.a. Sloan Halloway. I flipped through the pages. It was a geography of destruction. 5 years ago, Reno, Nevada. 2 lawsuits for unpaid vendors related to a boutique event planning business. A judgment for $12,000, unpaid, 4 years ago. Scottsdale, Arizona. A restraining order filed by a former business partner. Allegations of embezzlement. The case was settled out of court, likely with money she did not have. 3 years ago, a marriage license in Las Vegas. Groom, Mason Creed. Bride, Sloan Verlack. 6 months later, a divorce decree. Contested. I scanned the details of the divorce. It was ugly. There were cross complaints. Sloan had accused Mason of financial abuse. Mason had accused Sloan of fraud and forgery. I looked at the contact information listed for Mason Creed in the old report. A phone number in Henderson, Nevada. I did not hesitate. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number. I expected it to be disconnected. I expected a voicemail. But after 4 rings, a voice answered. It was deep, scratchy, and sounded incredibly tired. "Hello? Is this Mason Creed?" I asked. "Who is asking?" The guard went up immediately. I could hear the tension in his voice, the reflex of a man who is used to dodging debt collectors or process servers. "My name is Lucy Fox," I said. "I am calling from Austin, Texas. My brother is married to a woman named Sloan Mercer. I believe you knew her as Sloan Verlack." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. It was not an empty silence, It was a silence filled with a sudden, sharp intake of breath. Mercer, Mason said. The name came out like a curse word. She went back to Mercer? That was her mother's name. I am looking for information. Mr. Creed, I said, Sloan has just attempted to take out a commercial loan in my name using my social security number. She is currently living in a house I own. Mason let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She is still running the play, he said. He sounded exhausted. I thought maybe she would stop. I thought maybe she found a mark rich enough to just pay her off. Tell me, I said. She moves fast. Mason said, She comes in like a whirlwind, makes you feel like you are the king of the world. She has these big ideas, businesses, brands. She gets you to sign a few things, small things at first, a car lease, a joint account for household expenses. And then, I prompted. Then the mail stops coming to the house, Mason said. You do not notice at first. You think it is just a slow week, but she has redirected it. She took out a second mortgage on my shop. I owned a custom motorcycle garage. Fully paid off. My grandfather built it. I gripped the phone tighter. She forged my signature on the notary documents. Mason continued. She has a friend, or she pays someone off. I did not know until the sheriff came to padlock the doors. She had drained the equity. $200,000. Gone. Where did the money go? I asked. Appearances, Mason said. Clothes, trips. She needs to look successful to find the next guy. It is a Ponzi scheme. But the product is her personality. Did you press charges? I tried. Mason said. His voice broke. But she is good. Ms. Fox, she is so good. She went to the police first. She told them I was beating her. She told them I forced her to sign those loans. She showed them bruises. I do not know where she got them. Maybe she did it to herself. But in the eyes of the court, I was the abuser and she was the victim who made bad financial choices under duress. I felt a chill run through me. This was the strategy. This was why she was posting about financial abuse online. She was preloading the narrative. If I sued her, she would claim I was the monster. She destroyed me, Mason whispered. I lost the shop. I lost my house. I filed for bankruptcy. I live in a one-bedroom apartment now, and I work for a chain mechanic shop. I am 40 years old and I have nothing. I am sorry. Mason. I said, Do not be sorry. He said, Be fast. If she is using your name, she is already in the endgame. She knows the clock is ticking. She will burn everything down before she leaves. Do not let her write the story about you. Ms. Fox. That is her real weapon. She controls the story. I looked at the stack of papers on my counter. Thank you. Mason, I said, you have been very helpful. One more thing. Mason said, Does your brother? Does he know? I paused. That was the question that haunted me. I do not know. I admitted. He probably doesn't. Mason said, or he suspects, and he is too scared to look. That is how she gets you. She makes you an accomplice before you even know a crime has been committed. By the time you figure it out, you are too guilty to go to the police. I hung up the phone. Mason's words echoed in the kitchen. She makes you an accomplice. My phone buzzed again. It was a new alert. Transaction declined. Luxury auto imports. Amount, $8,500. Reason, credit freeze active. I looked at the timestamp. 1 minute ago, she was frantic. The loan had failed. The insurance scheme was stalled. Now she was trying to lease a car, probably a high-end SUV, to salvage some tangible asset she could drive away in. She was hitting every wall I had erected, and she was hitting them hard. She was not just a grifter. She was a virus that had consumed its host and was now desperately trying to jump to a new body before the old one died. Then, a text message came through. It was not from Sloan. It was from Evan. Evan, Lucy, please, pick up. I am in the bathroom. I have the water running. I did not call him. I texted back. Lucy, talk. Evan, she is going crazy. She smashed her phone when the bank called. She knows you blocked the money. She says you are trying to kill us. Lucy, I am trying to stop a felony. Evan, did you sign the loan application? There was a long pause. The three dots appeared and disappeared. I could not save him, not this way. If I unlocked the funds, I would not be saving him. I would just be drowning with him. Lucy. No. Evan. She is going to destroy everything. Lucy. Then let it burn. But I'm not burning with you. I put the phone down. I looked at the dossier again. I looked at the judgments from Nevada and Arizona. I understood now. The barbecue was not just a social event. It was a stage. Sloane needed an audience. She needed witnesses. If she was going to go down, she was going to make sure it looked like a tragedy where she was the martyr. She was going to use the family, the neighbors, the innocent bystanders as props in her final performance of victimhood. She wanted a scene? Fine. I walked to my printer. I scanned the document from Dad. I scanned the printout of the background check I had found in the house. I printed copies. I opened the file Renee had sent me. The notice to quit. The legal demand for immediate surrender of the property due to breach of lease terms regarding criminal activity. I stacked them all together. I had the history. I had the motive. I had the proof of the pattern. Evan was trapped in a cage of his own making, terrified of the tiger he had married. He thought the only way out was to feed me to the tiger. He was wrong. The way out was to open the cage and shoot the beast. I checked my watch. It was noon. The barbecue started at 1 o'clock. I went to my closet. I took off the jeans and the sweater. I put on a suit, not a party dress. A suit, navy blue, sharp lines, the kind of suit I wore when I was firing a vendor who had failed to deliver. I was not going to a party. I was going to a site inspection. I picked up the stack of documents. They were my weapon. They were my shield. I walked out of the apartment. The game of golden child and invisible child was over. The game of predator and prey was ending today. I was bringing the truth to 420 Oak Creek Drive. And truth, unlike a family group chat, could not be muted. The silence in my office was no longer a sanctuary. It was the eye of a storm. My phone, sitting face up on the mahogany desk, began to pulse with a rhythm that felt malicious. It was not a call. It was a cascade of notifications. A digital avalanche triggered by a single stone. I picked up the device. The screen was bright with alerts from the social media monitoring tool I had linked to my personal accounts. Sloane had gone nuclear on her public profile, which she had curated to look like a mix of a lifestyle guru and a struggling artist. She had posted a photograph. It was a black and white selfie, artfully blurry, showing a single tear tracking down her cheek. The caption was a manifesto of victimhood. I have stayed silent for too long to protect the reputation of people who do not care if I live or die, she wrote. It is hard to admit that you are a survivor of financial abuse. It is even harder when the abuser is a family member who uses their wealth as a weapon to control. Silence and starve you. Imagine having a sister who sits in a glass tower, hoarding millions, while threatening to evict her own brother from his home just because she can. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. Toxic family narcissist survivor. Breaking the silence, I watched the engagement numbers climb. 30 likes, 50 likes. Comments were pouring in from her echo chamber of friends and my own distant relatives. Stay strong, babe. One friend wrote. Karma never misses, wrote another. I can't believe she would do that to Evan, my aunt commented. I did not feel angry. I felt a cold, clinical detachment. I was watching a biological pathogen replicate. She was inoculating the public against the truth. By labeling me an abuser before I could file charges, she was ensuring that any legal action I took would look like retaliation. I took a screenshot. I added it to the evidence folder. Then came the second wave. My work email pinged. It was a priority flag from the Vantacore internal security filter. Subject: External inquiry/concern regarding employee safety. I opened it. It was an email sent to the general Info Vantacore inbox, copied to the Human Resources tip line. The sender's name was Concerned Family Member 88. To whom it may concern, I am writing out of deep concern for one of your executives, Lucy Fox, as her family. We have noticed a severe decline in her mental stability recently. She has been exhibiting paranoid behavior, erratic mood swings, and aggressive tendencies toward her loved ones. We are worried she may be under the influence of substances or suffering from a breakdown. We know she handles sensitive data, and we just wanted to make sure she and the company are safe. Please check on her. It was a masterstroke of malice. It was framed as concern, but the intent was to destroy my credibility. If Vantacor launched an internal investigation into my mental health, my security clearance could be suspended. My access to the banking codes could be frozen. Sloan was trying to cut off my supply lines. I picked up my desk phone and dialed the extension for the head of information security. He was in the building on Saturdays for system maintenance. "This is Fox," I said. "I am sending you a header for an external email sent to the general inbox 5 minutes ago. I need you to trace the origin IP and preserve the server log." "We saw it." "Ms. Fox," he replied, his voice calm. The language triggered our phishing and harassment filters. "It looks like a malicious attempt to swat your career. Do you want us to reply?" "No," I said. "Do not engage. Just archive it. Connect the IP address to the one that tried to access my insurance portal this morning. It will match?" "Understood," he said. "We will hold it as evidence of tortious interference. You are clear. Lucy." I hung up. She was attacking me on 3 fronts: the family, the public, and the company. She was trying to create a fog of war so dense that when the police eventually arrived, they would not know who to arrest. Then, the intercom buzzed. "Ms. Fox?" Marcus, the security guard, spoke again. His voice sounded strained this time. "I have a situation in the lobby." "Is it them?" I asked. "It is your mother," Marcus said. "Mrs. Harper. She is quite upset. Ms. Fox, she is crying very loudly. She is asking other people in the lobby why a daughter would ban her own mother from going upstairs. She is making a scene." I closed my eyes for a second. Of course, Sloan had sent the infantry. "Do not let her up, Marcus," I said. "I am coming down." I grabbed my phone. I checked the recording app. It was running. I took the elevator down. The 34 floors felt like a descent into a different world. Up here, I was a director. Down there, I was the daughter who never did enough. When the elevator doors opened, the sound hit me first. My mother's sobbing was theatrical, designed to echo off the marble walls. She was standing near the turnstiles, clutching a tissue, looking small and frail. A few weekend staff members were looking at her with pity. She saw me and her face crumpled. "Lucy!" she wailed. She rushed toward the barrier. "Oh, thank God. Tell this man to let me in. Why are you doing this?" I stepped out of the elevator, but I did not cross the turnstiles. I stayed on the secure side. I pointed to the security camera dome on the ceiling. Then I looked at her. "We can talk right here, Mom," I said. My voice was level. "Here?" she sniffed, looking around. "In front of strangers? Lucy, let me up. We need to talk about Evan. He is a wreck. He says you are calling the police. How could you? He tried to steal $420,000 from me." "Mom," I said, "he used my social security number. That is a federal crime. It is not a family dispute." "He didn't mean it," she shouted. The pity in the room shifted. People were listening. "He just needed a signature and you weren't answering. He is your brother. You have so much. Lucy, look at this place. You have so much, and he has nothing. Why can't you just sign the paper? Why do you have to be so cold?" "It is not about the money," I said. "It is about the fraud. Sloan is running a scam. Mom, she did it to her ex-husband, and now she's doing it to Evan, and you are helping her." "Sloan loves him," my mother screamed. Her face turned red. "She is the only one who believes in him. You just look down on him. You always have. You think you are better than us because you have a degree and a view. But you have no heart. Lucy, you are empty." Her words were meant to hurt. They were meant to make me press the button, let her in, and hug her. They were meant to make me surrender. But I looked at her, and I saw the truth. She was terrified. She knew, deep down, that Evan was incompetent and Sloane was dangerous. But admitting that would mean admitting she had failed as a mother, so she chose the easier path. Blame Lucy. Lucy is strong enough to take the blame. Lucy can afford to be the villain. I am not empty, I said. I am just done paying for the lies. If you do not fix this, my mother said, her voice dropping to a hiss. If you send the police to that barbecue, I will never forgive you. I mean it. Lucy, you will lose this family. I think, I said slowly, that I lost this family the moment you let them steal my name. I turned my back on her. Lucy, she screamed, don't you walk away. I am your mother. Marcus, I said to the guard as I walked back to the elevators, please escort Mrs. Harper out. If she refuses to leave, call the police. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, cutting off her screams. I leaned my head against the cool metal wall. My hands were shaking, just a little, not from sadness, but from the sheer toxicity of the encounter. It was like breathing in carbon monoxide. My phone rang again. It was Renee. I saw the post, Renee said, and the legal team at Vanticor just forwarded me the harassment email. She is trying to bait you. Lucy. I know, I said. My mother just came to the lobby. Did you let her up? No. Good, Renee said. Listen to me. Sloane wants a reaction. She wants you to go to that house screaming. She wants a video of you losing your temper so she can edit it and post it alongside her sob story. If you go there and yell, you validate her narrative. You become the unstable sister. I am not going to yell, I said. Then what are you going to do? Renee asked. The barbecue starts in an hour. The eviction notice is drafted. The fraud packet is ready. We can send a process server on Monday. Monday is too late, I said. She is leasing cars. She is moving fast. If I wait until Monday, she will have found another way to bleed the accounts, or she will have destroyed the house out of spite. I walked back into my office. The city looked vast and indifferent below me. I am going to the barbecue, I said. Lucy, Renee warned, that is dangerous ground. You are outnumbered. I am not going to eat, I said. I am going to serve them. I am going to do it in front of the witnesses she invited. She wants an audience? I will give her a show, but it won't be the one she wrote. Okay, Renee said. She sounded resigned but respectful. If you are doing this, we do it by the book. Do not touch anyone. Do not raise your voice. Do not enter any room alone where they can corner you. Stay in the public areas. State your business. Drop the papers and leave. I need a witness, I said. A neutral third party. I have a process server on retainer who works weekends, Renee said. Big guy, ex-military. He holds a camera while he works. I will send him to meet you there. His name is Hank. Tell Hank to meet me at the corner of Oak Creek Drive at 1 o'clock, I said. Lucy, Renee said softly, once you do this, there is no going back. You are evicting your parents from their fantasy. It is an expensive fantasy, I said. And the rent is overdue. I hung up. I looked at the Aurora Collective binder still sitting on the edge of my desk, where Sloane had left it. I picked it up. I dropped it into the recycling bin. I gathered my stack of documents, the deed, the tax records proving I paid every cent, the insurance fraud alert, the background check on Mason Creed, the affidavit of identity theft, and the notice to quit. I checked the time, 12:15. I walked out of the office. I took the elevator down to the garage, bypassing the lobby where the ghost of my mother's accusations still lingered. I got into my car. The leather was cold. I navigated out of the city, merging onto the highway that led to the suburbs. The traffic was light. The sun was trying to break through the clouds, casting a harsh gray light on the wet asphalt. My phone buzzed one last time. It was a notification from the family group chat. I had not left the group. I wanted to see them. Sloane sent a photo. It was a picture of the backyard at Oak Creek Drive. The grill was smoking. Balloons were tied to the deck railing. My parents were smiling, holding red plastic cups. Evan was standing by the cooler, looking forced and pale. Caption: Nothing can break this family. Love always wins. Blessed. I looked at the timestamp. 2 minutes ago, they were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought that by causing a scene in the lobby and posting lies online, they had scared me into submission. They thought I was hiding in my tower, crying over my lost reputation. They had no idea that I was 20 minutes away. I placed the phone on the passenger seat, right on top of the legal file. Love doesn't win, I said to the empty car. Law wins. Evidence wins. I pressed the accelerator. The engine roared, a deep, powerful sound that drowned out the memory of my mother's voice. I was done being the invisible child. I was done being the bank. I was coming home, and I was bringing the receipt. I pulled my car into the empty parking lot of a closed bank branch, 3 blocks away from the subdivision entrance. It was 12:45 in the afternoon. The sky was a flat, slate gray, the kind of sky that threatens a storm but refuses to deliver the relief of rain. I turned off the engine. The silence inside the cabin was absolute. I was not hyperventilating. I was not crying. I was not rehearsing angry speeches about childhood trauma or neglected birthdays. I was doing what I did best. I was running a final system check before deployment. On the passenger seat beside me lay the portfolio. It was a black, water-resistant binder, identical to the ones I used for board presentations. Inside, I had organized the destruction of my family's delusions into 4 color-coded sections. I opened it to verify the contents one last time. Section 1. Ownership. The top document was the deed to the property at 420 Oak Creek Drive. It was stamped, notarized, and indisputable. Beneath it were the articles of organization for Blue Heron Holdings, listing Lucy Fox as the sole member and manager. There was no Evan Harper listed. There was no Sloan Mercer. I flipped the page. Section 2. Financial reality. This was the thickest section. It contained 5 years of property tax receipts, all paid via wire transfer from my personal account. It contained the homeowner insurance policy declarations, showing the premium payments deducted from my salary. It contained the maintenance logs, the roof repair, the HV, AC replacement, the fence installation, all with corresponding invoices billed to me. I ran my finger over the numbers. $32,000 in taxes, $4,500 in insurance premiums annually, $12,000 in repairs. These were not gifts, in the eyes of the law. These were evidence of ownership and maintenance. They were the mathematical proof that Evan was not a homeowner. He was a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Section 3. The breach. This was the weapon. I had printed the fraud alert confirmation from Meridian Ridge Bank. Application denied. Identity theft protocol. I had included the affidavit I had digitally signed with the Federal Trade Commission an hour ago, formally reporting the misuse of my Social Security number. Next to it was the printout from the insurance portal, showing the unauthorized attempt by Sloan Harper to redirect the payout to her shell company. Section 4. The pattern. This was the context. I had included the public court records from Nevada regarding Sloan Verlack. I did not include the gossip or the hearsay. I only included the judgments, the unpaid debts, the restraining order, the divorce filing where Mason Creed alleged forgery. It was a timeline of a predator moving from host to host. I closed the binder. The snap of the rings sounded like a gunshot in the quiet car. I checked my phone. Renee had sent a final text. Renee, remember the rules of engagement. You are not a sister today. You are a landlord serving a notice. Do not get drawn into a debate. Do not let them isolate you in a back room. Stay visible. Hank is 2 minutes out. I took a breath. The rules of engagement. I had spent my entire life breaking these rules. I had always engaged. I had always debated, trying to prove my worth. I had always let them isolate me, making me feel like I was the crazy one in the back room while they laughed in the light. Not today. A dark gray sedan pulled into the lot and parked 2 spaces away. A man stepped out. He was large, perhaps 6 feet 4 inches, with a shaved head and a beard that looked like steel wool. He wore a plain black polo shirt and khaki tactical pants. He looked like a man who could stop a bar fight without spilling his coffee. This was Hank, the process server. I stepped out of my car and walked over to him. The air was heavy and humid. "Ms. Fox?" he asked. His voice was a low rumble. "Yes," I said. "Thank you for coming on such short notice, Hank." "Renee says this is a domestic service," Hank said. "High volatility expected?" "My brother and his wife," I confirmed. "There is a party in progress, approximately 20 guests. I need to serve an eviction notice based on lease violation due to criminal activity, and a cease and desist regarding the use of my identity." Hank nodded. He tapped a small black rectangle clipped to his chest. "Body cam is rolling," he said. "I stay 3 steps behind you. I document the delivery. If anyone gets physical, I intervene to de-escalate. Otherwise, I am a fly on the wall. You do the talking." "I understand," I said. "Do you have the papers for service separate from your personal file?" he asked. I reached into the back of the binder and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside was the notice to quit. It was a terrifyingly simple document. It stated that the tenancy was terminated effective immediately due to the commission of a felony on the premises, and that they had 3 days to vacate before the sheriff was engaged to remove them. "Here," I said, handing him a copy. "And here's the copy for the tenants." "All right," Hank said. "I will follow you in. Park on the street, not the driveway. Keep your exit route clear." I got back into my car. My phone buzzed again. It was Evan. "Evan, Lucy, please don't come. Sloan is drinking. She is telling everyone you are crazy. If you show up, she will make a scene. She will ruin you. Just stay away. We can talk on Monday." I looked at the message. "She will ruin you." He still thought the threat of social embarrassment was enough to stop me. He thought that I was still the girl who would pay for the broken fence just to keep the neighbors from staring. He did not understand that the reputation I cared about, my professional integrity, my credit score, my name, was already under attack. I was not coming to save my reputation at the barbecue. I was coming to execute a salvage operation on my life. I typed back 2 words. "I know." I put the phone down. I did not feel fear. I felt a strange, cold clarity. For 34 years, I had waited for an invitation. I had waited to be asked to the party. I had waited to be included in the joke. The text, "Don't come," was the most honest thing they had ever said to me. It was an admission that I did not belong in their world of fabricated success and emotional parasitism. And because I did not belong, I was not bound by their rules. I did not have to play the role of the supportive sister. I did not have to smile and eat the burnt hot dogs. I did not have to pretend that Sloan was anything other than a thief. I put the car in drive. I drove the 3 blocks to the subdivision entrance. Oak Creek Estates. The sign was faux stone, trying to look established and wealthy. I turned onto the street. I saw the balloons first. Red and blue balloons tied to the mailbox of number 420. The driveway was full of cars. A Ford F-150, a Toyota Camry, a leased BMW that I knew they couldn't afford. I could hear the music, a generic pop playlist thumping from a Bluetooth speaker. I could smell the charcoal smoke. It was the smell of a typical American Saturday. To anyone else driving by, it looked like a celebration. To me, it looked like a crime scene where the criminals were toasting their own cleverness. I parked on the street, blocking the mailbox, but leaving enough room to pull out fast. I checked my mirror. Hank pulled up behind me. He stepped out, adjusting his shirt. He looked like a boulder that had decided to take a walk. I grabbed the black binder. I grabbed the manila envelope. I opened the car door and stepped onto the pavement. My heels clicked on the asphalt. It was a sharp, military sound. I looked at the house. The siding needed a power wash. I made a mental note of it. Maintenance required prior to sale. I was already thinking about the listing. I was already moving past the eviction, past the drama, to the liquidation of the asset. That was how I survived. I turned the pain into a project plan. I walked up the driveway. A neighbor, Mr. Henderson, The son of the man whose fence I had fixed 20 years ago was walking across the lawn with a six-pack of beer. He saw me. "Lucy?" he asked, surprised. "I thought Evan said you weren't making it. Something about work?" "Hello, Dave," I said. My voice was pleasant but closed. I had a change of schedule. I did not stop to chat. I kept moving. I walked past the garage. The door was open. Inside, I saw boxes stacked against the wall. Inventory, Sloan probably called it. It was likely empty boxes meant to look like product. I reached the gate to the backyard. I could hear Sloan's voice. She was loud, holding court. "And honestly, we are just so blessed to have investors who believe in the vision," she was saying. "It is going to be huge. We are looking at property in the hills for the retreat center." She was pitching. She was using my house, my food, and the credibility of the Harper family to scam the neighbors. I reached for the latch of the gate. My hand was steady. I looked back at Hank. He nodded once. I lifted the latch. The gate swung open with a metal groan that cut through the music. I stepped onto the deck. I was not the sister who ruined the mood. I was the landlord, and I was here to close the venue. The backyard of 420 Oak Creek Drive was a masterclass in suburban camouflage. As I stepped through the wooden gate, the scene that greeted me was aggressively normal. It was the kind of scene that belonged in a commercial for life insurance or fabric softener. There were about 25 people scattered across the deck and the lawn. Children were chasing each other around the inflatable pool, their shrieks of laughter piercing the humid afternoon air. The smell of burning charcoal and marinating meat was thick and savory, masking the underlying scent of wet grass and deception. My father, Glenn, was standing by the oversized stainless steel grill, a grill I had paid for 3 Christmases ago, flipping burgers with a pair of tongs that looked comically large in his hand. My mother, Mary Ann, was holding a glass of white wine, laughing at something a neighbor was saying. She looked happy. She looked relieved. She looked like a woman who believed that ignoring a problem was the same thing as solving it. And then there was Sloan. She was holding court in the center of the deck, wearing a white sundress that was pristine and bright against the gray weather. She was gesturing with a half-eaten hot dog, her other hand resting possessively on Evan's shoulder. Evan looked like a hostage who had been told to smile for the proof of life video. He was pale, sweating, and staring into his red plastic cup as if hoping to find a trapdoor at the bottom. The music was playing a catchy, upbeat pop song about feeling good. Then, my heels struck the wooden decking. Clack. I took another step. Clack. Hank, the large process server, stepped in behind me. His boots made a heavier, duller sound. Thud. The momentum of the party didn't stop all at once. It rippled. The people nearest the gate turned first. Their smiles faltered. They nudged their neighbors. The silence spread like a contagion, moving from the edge of the yard to the center, until the only sounds left were the sizzling of grease on the grill and the oblivious laughter of the children in the grass. Sloan turned, her eyes locked onto me. For a split second, I saw genuine fear. It was a flash of panic, the look of a stage magician who realizes someone has walked behind the curtain, but it vanished instantly, replaced by a performance of righteous indignation. "You!" Sloan shrieked, her voice cracked, loud and shrill. "Evan told you not to come. You are not welcome here. Lucy!" The music seemed to cut out, though I knew someone had just hit pause on the speaker. My father dropped the tongs. They clattered onto the stone patio. My mother froze, her wine glass halfway to her mouth. I did not stop walking. I moved with the steady, inexorable rhythm of a deadline approaching. I walked past the cooler filled with ice. I walked past the neighbor, Dave, who stepped back as if I were radioactive. "Get out!" Sloan yelled, stepping in front of Evan as if to shield him. "This is a private party. You are ruining everything, just like always. Someone call the police." "There is no need to call the police. Sloan," I said. My voice was not loud. I did not shout. I spoke with the flat, projected clarity I used in boardrooms. "I have brought a witness with me. We are recording." I gestured slightly behind me. Hank stood by the gate. his hands clasped in front of him, the black rectangle of his body camera glowing with a tiny red light. The guests looked at Hank, then they looked at their phones. A few of the younger cousins had already raised their devices. Sensing the drama, they wanted a show. They wanted the viral moment of the rich. Crazy sister crashing the humble family gathering. I reached the main table. It was covered in a red and white checkered tablecloth, laden with bowls of potato salad, chips, and buns. I lifted the black binder. It was heavy. I dropped it onto the table. Thud. The sound was solid. Final. It caused a bowl of dip to wobble. "I am not here to attend the barbecue," I said, addressing the room but looking directly at Evan. "I am here to conduct a site inspection and to serve legal notice." "Notice?" my mother stammered, stepping forward. "Lucy, please, not here, not in front of the neighbors." "This is exactly where it happens, Mother," I said, "because this is where the lie lives." I opened the binder. I did not look down. I knew the pages by heart. "Sloan has been telling you that this is Evan's house," I said. I looked at the neighbors. I saw Mr. Henderson listening intently. "She has been telling investors that this property is part of their portfolio, that it is an asset they can leverage." "It is our house," Sloan screamed. "We live here. We built this life." "Living somewhere does not make you the owner," I said. "Paying the mortgage makes you the owner." I pulled out the first document, the deed. "This property is owned by Blue Heron Holdings," I said, "a limited liability company of which I am the sole member. I provided the down payment of $80,000. I have paid every single property tax installment for the last 4 years, totaling $32,000. I paid for the roof you are standing under. I paid for the fence that encloses this yard." I tossed the deed onto the table, right next to the potato salad. "Evan," I said, "have you ever paid a property tax bill?" Evan flinched. He looked at Sloan, then at me. "Lucy, don't answer the question," I said. "No," he whispered. "Have you ever paid the insurance premium?" No. The crowd shifted. The narrative was cracking. The neighbors were exchanging glances. The rich, mean sister story was colliding with the freeloading brother reality. Sloan saw she was losing the audience. She grabbed Evan's arm, digging her nails in. "She is lying," Sloan yelled. "She uses money to control us. She set this up to trap us. This is financial abuse. She is trying to evict a young family just because she is jealous." "I am not evicting you because I am jealous," I said. "I am evicting you because you committed a felony on the premises." I pulled out the second document, the notice to quit. "This is a 3-day notice to vacate," I said. "Your lease is terminated effective immediately due to illegal activity conducted from this address." "What illegal activity?" my father asked. His voice was shaking. "Lucy, what are you saying? Evan is a good boy." "Last night," I said, raising my voice slightly so the back of the room could hear, "at 11:22 at night, an application was submitted to Meridian Ridge Bank for a business loan." I pulled out the fraud report. I held it up. "The amount requested was $420,000. I said. A collective gasp went through the crowd. $420,000 was not a small business loan. It was a mortgage. It was a life sentence of debt. "The application listed this address," I continued, "and it listed me as the primary guarantor. It used my name, my date of birth." I paused. I looked at Sloan. Her face had gone patchy and white beneath her makeup. "And it used my social security number," I said. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh, my God. That is identity theft," I said. "That is wire fraud. That is bank fraud. It is a federal crime punishable by up to 30 years in prison." I slammed the fraud report down on top of the deed. "I blocked the loan," I said. "I have filed an affidavit with the Federal Trade Commission, and I have flagged this address as a center of fraudulent activity." The silence on the deck was absolute. The children had stopped running. The music was long gone. The only sound was the wind rustling the Happy Family banner, which now looked like a cruel joke. The cousins who had been filming were slowly lowering their phones. They realized this wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't family drama. This was a crime scene. Sloane was vibrating. She was cornered. The neighbors were looking at her not with admiration, but with suspicion. They were wondering if she had tried to borrow money from them, too. She let go of Evan's arm and shoved him hard. "You idiot!" she screamed. The sudden violence of it made everyone jump. "You said she wouldn't check," Sloane yelled at Evan, her voice tearing out of her throat. "You said she was too busy. You said she just pays the bills and doesn't look. You told me it would go through." Evan stumbled back, hitting the railing. "I didn't, Sloane. I told you she would know." "You are useless," Sloane shrieked. Her mask of the loving, supportive wife dissolved instantly, revealing the snarling predator beneath. "I did everything. I built the brand. I made the connections. All you had to do was get the signature. All you had to do was handle your stupid sister." She turned to me, her eyes wild. "You think you are so smart?" she spat. "You think you can just walk in here with your papers and ruin my life? I have been working on this for months. I deserve this capital." "You do not deserve my credit score," I said coldly. "I am the victim here," Sloane shouted, spinning around to face the guests, throwing her arms out. "Look at her. Look at this suit. She comes here to humiliate us. She entrapped us. She gave us the house just to hold it over our heads." "I gave you a home," I said. "You turned it into a headquarters for theft." I turned to Hank. "Serve them," I said. Hank stepped forward. He handed one envelope to Evan, who took it with trembling hands. He tried to hand the other to Sloane. Sloane slapped the envelope out of his hand. It fluttered to the deck, landing in a puddle of spilled beer. "I am not taking that," she screamed. "Service is considered complete," Hank said calmly, his voice deep and bored. "It is on camera." My mother was sobbing now, leaning against my father. But she wasn't looking at me with anger anymore. She was looking at Evan. She was seeing, for the first time, the weakness she had codified. She was seeing the monster she had let into the house. "Sloane," my father said, his voice weak. Did you use Lucy's number?" "Oh, shut up. Glenn," Sloane snapped at him. You knew we needed money. You are just as pathetic as your son, sitting there flipping burgers while your daughter owns the ground you walk on." My father recoiled as if slapped. Sloane turned back to me. She was panting. Her hair was coming loose from its perfect bun. She looked dangerous. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think a piece of paper stops me?" She reached into her pocket. She pulled out her phone. "I have followers. Lucy," she said, her voice dropping to a menacing purr. "I have a platform. You want to bring facts? I will bring feelings. I will tell the world you hit me. I will tell them you threatened Evan's life. I will edit this video until you look like a psychopath." She held the phone up, pointing the camera lens right at my face. Her thumb hovered over the record button. "I will ruin your career," she said. "I will make you so toxic that Vanticor will fire you before Monday morning. I will destroy your reputation. Lucy, I will burn you down." I looked at the phone lens. I looked at her manic eyes. I did not flinch. "Go ahead," I said. "Live stream it, but make sure you get my good side." I pointed to the camera behind me. "Because while you are filming a story," I said, "Hank is filming a deposition." Sloane laughed. It was a jagged, broken sound. "You are going to pay for this," she said. "You are going to pay." She took a step toward me, the phone raised high like a weapon, her other hand clenching into a fist. The air on the deck grew tight, snapping with the electricity of imminent violence. I stood my ground. I did not retreat. I was not the little girl fixing the fence anymore. I was the wall. And Sloane was about to crash right into me. Sloane tapped the screen of her phone. The red recording dot began to pulse. She held the device high, angling it so the camera caught her tear-streaked face in the foreground and my stoic, suited figure in the background. "Help!" she screamed. It was a blood-curdling sound, pitch perfect for a horror movie. My sister-in-law has broken into our house. She is threatening us. She is refusing to leave. Please, someone, call 911. She is violent. She lunged toward me, not to hit me, but to create the visual blur of a struggle. She wanted the camera to shake. She wanted chaos. I did not move. I did not raise my hands. I kept them clasped in front of my waist, exactly where Hank had instructed me. "Step back," Hank said. His voice was a deep baritone rumble that cut through her screeching. He did not touch her. He simply stepped between us, his chest filling the frame of her phone. "I am a registered process server. You have been served. Do not advance." Sloane spun around, aiming the camera at the neighbors. "Look, she brought a thug. She brought a hired goon to intimidate a family at a barbecue. Look at this." Mr. Henderson, standing by the fence with his beer, did not look intimidated. He looked at his own phone. Then he looked at Sloane. "Sloane," he said, his voice flat, "I am watching your stream. You just said she hit you. We are all standing right here. She hasn't moved an inch." Sloane froze. She had forgotten that the audience in the phone was not the only audience that mattered. The people on the lawn were real, and they were not clicking like. They were witnessing a fabrication in real time. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a single, distinct vibration. I pulled it out. It was a message from the head of information security at Vanticor. Trace complete. The malicious email sent to HR originated from IP address 192.168.1.5. Device ID matches a tablet currently active on the same network. I looked at the table. Sloane's oversized tote bag was open. A white tablet was sticking out. "Sloane," I said. My voice was calm enough to be picked up by her microphone. "You might want to stop recording. You are just providing more evidence for the district attorney." "Shut up," she hissed, backing away, still filming. "You are trying to silence a victim." "I just received confirmation from Vanticor Security," I said. "The anonymous email sent to my company this morning, claiming I was mentally unstable, was sent from the tablet in your bag. The metadata matches the IP address used to access my insurance portal, and it matches the location of the device you are holding right now." Evan looked up. His face was gray. You sent an email to her job?" "She is lying." "Evan," Sloane shouted, but the camera shook in her hand. "She is trying to turn you against me." "It is a digital fingerprint, Sloane," I said. "It does not lie. You tried to get me fired so I would lose my clearance and my ability to monitor the accounts. You tried to blind me so you could steal the house." "I did it for us," Sloane screamed at Evan. "We need the money. We deserve the money." The wail of a siren cut through the air. It was not the distant wail of a passing ambulance. It was the sharp, immediate yelp of a police cruiser turning into the cul-de-sac. Then a second one, then a third. Sloane's face lit up with a twisted triumph. "See? Someone called. They are here to take you away." "I did not call them," I said. "And neither did you." The music from the neighbors' houses died down. The blue and red lights washed over the white fence, turning the balloons into eerie, flickering orbs. 4 officers walked into the backyard. They were not wearing the uniforms of patrolmen responding to a noise complaint. They were wearing the windbreakers of the Economic Crimes Unit. Sloane lowered her phone. "Officers, thank God. That woman." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "She is trespassing. She is harassing us." The lead officer, a woman with a stern face and a clipboard, walked past me. She walked past my parents. She stopped in front of Sloane. "Are you Sloane Mercer?" the officer asked. "Yes," Sloane said, breathless. "I am the victim here. I want to press charges." "Sloane Mercer," the officer said. "We have a warrant for your arrest regarding 4 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, and 1 count of bank fraud." The silence that followed was heavier than the humid air. It was a physical weight. Sloane dropped her phone. It hit the deck with a crack. "What?" she whispered. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," the officer said. "No," Sloane said. She took a step back, bumping into the grill. "No, this is a mistake. My husband did it. Evan, tell them." She grabbed Evan's shirt, pulling him forward. "He signed the papers," Sloane shrieked. "It is his sister. He wanted the money. I just helped him fill out the forms. Arrest him." The crowd gasped. My mother let out a small, strangled sound. Evan stood there, his shirt bunched in his wife's fist. He looked at her. He looked at the woman he had defended against me for 2 years, the woman he had banned me from the barbecue for. He looked at the woman who was now trying to use his body as a human shield against a felony charge. "Evan!" Sloane screamed. "Tell them!" Evan looked at the officer. Then he looked at me. "I signed," Evan said. His voice was quiet, broken. "I signed because she told me it was a business license. She hid the top of the page. She keeps the mail in her trunk. She told me Lucy gave us permission." "He is lying," Sloane yelled. "We have the digital logs. Mrs. Mercer," the officer said, pulling Sloane's hands off Evan's shirt. "We have the IP addresses. We have the credit inquiries initiated by your device. And we have the witness statement from Mr. Mason Creed in Nevada regarding a similar pattern of behavior." Sloane stopped fighting. The name Mason Creed hit her like a physical blow. Her shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of her, leaving only a cold, venomous hate. The officer clicked the handcuffs onto her wrists. Click, click. The sound was metallic and final. It was the sound of a system correcting itself. "You are making a mistake," Sloane spat as they led her away. She looked at me over her shoulder. "You will never be happy. Lucy, you are cold. You are going to die alone with your money." "I would rather be alone with my money," I said, "than in a cell with your lies." They marched her out. The neighbors parted like the Red Sea. Hank filmed the entire exit. When the gate clicked shut, the backyard felt vast and empty. Evan sank into a patio chair. He put his head in his hands. He was sobbing. Deep, racking sobs that shook his whole body. My mother and father stood by the grill. They looked old. They looked like people who had woken up in a house that had burned down while they were sleeping. My mother looked at me. She took a step forward. "Lucy." I held up a hand. "No." "He didn't know," my mother pleaded. "He is just a boy. He made a mistake. Please, we need a lawyer. We need bail money. You can fix this. Lucy, you know people." I looked at them. I looked at the parents who had laughed at the "don't come" text. I looked at the brother who had let his wife call me a killjoy while she stole my identity. "I am not fixing this," I said. "Lucy, he is your brother," my father said. "He could go to jail." "He might," I said. "If he cooperates, maybe he gets probation, but that is up to him, and up to the lawyer he hires." "We don't have money for a lawyer," my mother cried. "Sloane spent everything. The accounts are empty." "Then he can use a public defender," I said. I picked up the black binder from the table. "You have 3 days to vacate the property," I said. "The eviction notice stands. I am listing the house for sale on Wednesday." "Where will we go?" Evan asked. Looking up, his eyes were red, terrified. "Lucy, I have nowhere to go. You have a college degree, Evan," I said. "You have 2 hands, and for the first time in your life, you have the truth. I suggest you start using it." I turned around. "Lucy," my mother screamed, "if you walk out that gate, do not come back. You are abandoning your family." I stopped at the gate. I looked back one last time. "I am not abandoning you," I said. "I am firing you." I walked out. I walked past the stunned neighbors. I walked past the balloons. I got into my car. I did not look back at the house at 420 Oak Creek Drive. Epilogue. 6 months later, the closing on the house was finalized on a Tuesday. I sold it to a young couple, both architects, who loved the fence and had no idea about the drama that had happened on the deck. The proceeds from the sale, after paying off the mortgage, came to $150,000. I did not keep it, and I did not give it to my parents. I established the Lucy Fox Initiative for Women in Science. It was a scholarship fund for girls from low-income families in Texas who wanted to study engineering. The first recipient was a 19-year-old girl named Maria, who worked 2 jobs to pay for her textbooks. When I handed her the check, she cried. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She just thanked me for the chance to fix things herself. Evan pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of negligence. He got probation and community service. He works at a landscaping company now. We do not talk. My parents still live in their old house. They send me cards on Christmas. I do not open them. Sloan is currently serving a 5-year sentence in a federal correctional facility in Fort Worth. Mason Creed sent me a bottle of wine when the verdict came down. I drank a glass to his health. I changed my phone number. I changed my locks. Tonight, I am sitting in my office on the 34th floor. The rain is falling against the glass, just like it was on that night. But the silence is different now. It is not the silence of exclusion. It is the silence of peace. I realized that for 34 years, I was trying to buy a seat at a table where I was the main course. I thought that if I paid enough, if I fixed enough, they would finally love me. But love is not a transaction, and family is not a hostage situation. I signed the final document for the scholarship fund. The ink was black and permanent. My name is Lucy Fox, and for the first time in my life, I am debt-free. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment down below sharing your location and your thoughts on Lucy's decision. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel Leona Revenge Stories. Hit the like button and smash that hype button to help this story get heard by more people.